Hello and welcome along to this UCAS International podcast with me, Robbie James, and in today's episode we are talking all about employability. So how you can go about finding a job, where you can get advice and support, and also how does the actual process itself work. Things like the application, interviews, any tasks you might have to do, and also careers in general, and the fact that you don't necessarily have to have one career for life. And to do that, I am in the wonderful company of two brilliant guests. Firstly, careers advisor at the University of Portsmouth, Janet Woolnough. Nice to see you. Welcome along to the podcast. And also from Birkbeck University as well in London. Nice to have Demi Flores from us. Demi, welcome to you to the podcast.
Thank you.
Lovely to have you both on. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will have noticed that, Janet, we have positioned you perfectly in front of our little logo, which makes it look like you have lightning bolts coming out of your head. How do you feel about that new look? It's good, isn't it?
I think, to be honest, I'm going to carry that with me, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you're going to have to screenshot that up and get that on LinkedIn as soon as possible. Listen, let's start with you, Janet. So you are careers advisor at University of Portsmouth, which I imagine is actually quite an exciting job, right? It's quite a fun thing to do because you must have you must sort of every day have students come to you asking for advice, and there are a lot of options, as we're going to get into.
Absolutely. I mean, when I see students, they can be coming to us for any kind of help. So every day is different. It's lovely working with students from lots of different backgrounds, and I work particularly with students from an international background as well. So, I love my job.
And that is exactly why we put the lightning bolts coming out of your head. And Demi, as for you, tell us a little bit about your story. So you're studying at Birkbeck University. You are an international student. So tell us, what year are you in? Where did you come from? And how are you enjoying things over in the UK?
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been such a crazy journey so far. I'm on my third year, graduating next year. So can't believe that.
Has that gone quick?
It's going really quick. Yes. So I study computer science at Birkbeck University of London. I started in a completely different field. So my way into what I'm doing now, it's been completely not very linear as you might think, but we can talk a bit more about that as well. So just on my final year now.
The final stretch.
Yes.
So therefore, that's why we got you on the podcast, of course, because you're going to be looking ahead to careers and jobs and what's going to come next. Have you, so far in your journey, have you done any internships, work experience, anything like that?
Yes. So I've done, well, I think I've always been quite proactive about career and development. So since my first year, I was already applying for Insight Days and Spring Week. So I did, I think 3 Spring Weeks in 3 different companies. And then
explain what that is. What that is. Spring Week, did you say?
Yes. So that is usually target for first-year students, and they're usually a week-long or 2 weeks long work in a company. So you get to know a little bit about them, and you have workshops and challenges. In my situation, it was like coding challenges, and then that usually leads to a summer internship. So usually first-year students, they should be worried about applying for Spring Weeks and Insight Days. So it's a great way to kind of get to know a little bit about the companies, and also to kind of have a feel of if you kind of would like to be working in that field, and for that specific company, you'd like to be doing the things that they do there. So it's a good way to kind of like open your mind for that. And then it's also a great opportunity to kind of get fast track to summer opportunities, because they are assessing you during that time. And then so depending on your performance, you get opportunities to come back on your second year as in the summer internship. So that happened to me. And then so for summer internships, it's another story. You should be worried about that on your last year of university. So that's target for second year students. And then obviously on your third year, it's grad schemes and all of that.
It's really interesting you mentioning that you were doing it so early on in your uni career, because Janet, I suppose the preconception would probably be, I don't need to worry about employability or anything like that until I'm, the latter stages of my degree. But actually, what Demi's saying there is that the importance of actually testing the water early on, as early as first year.
Yeah. I mean, I'd really endorse that. I mean,
what did you just drop? That was the
just
sound of your water
water.
bottle. Oh, don't worry about that. You didn't need your
I
water
didn't
bottle.
need
You
one.
answer the question and I'll get your water bottle. Go on.
No, just leave it there. I don't need it.
Yeah, we'll get it. It's fine.
Sorry about that.
We keep
Sorry.
this in, by the way. We're not cutting this out. Just for the- you've got your water bottle there.
I think, Demi, that gave such a good insight to really the advice we would always give to new students. I think the worst mistake you can make is leaving everything to your final year and think actually what's most important and actually what's only important is my degree. And I think some students do that. They think, right, if I really knuckle down and I get the best grades possible, that is what employers are looking for. But what employers are looking for is the skills that you're developing through the experience you're getting. But I think what I would say as well is some sort of second year students might hear this and they might think, oh my goodness, well, I didn't do a spring week. You know, it's all over. It's the end. What can I possibly do? So I think every student will take a different path. Some students will start those great corporate opportunities in year one. For some, that isn't right. They're not always available to everyone. But really, wherever you start, I think it's a case of building skills in whatever way is right for you. You know, in the UK, a lot of international students perhaps are quite surprised how UK companies recruit. So probably about 60% of companies recruit individuals from any discipline. So when they are looking
What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by that? That's a really good question. So what do I mean by that? I think you might assume that if you are going for a graduate accounting job, the company will only recruit accounting students or maybe maths students. But actually, finance firms love people from very different backgrounds. They love that students and graduates will come to them and can solve problems in really different ways. So the key thing is about building skills, and you can do that in a number of ways. You can do that by getting involved in a student society and being potentially developing and being a social secretary. You can do that by part-time work, because if you're an international student and you're working in the UK market, you're, as well as getting all those team skills, you're getting a real understanding of how a UK business operates. Now, obviously, if you're getting brilliant corporate experience as well, that has added advantage, because what that means is you are getting that insight into what a company's like. You're getting that insight into the role. Is it something that's right for me? And it can, as you discovered, directly lead to progression through the stages of that company. And that is obviously a great opportunity, but it's not the only route that students will take. It's not the only way to build experience. And any experience is valued by employers.
It sounds there, Demi, like you kind of knew that already, right?
Yeah.
So in your experience of those first year, you kind of saw that.
Yes, I've gone through both roads actually. I've done internships that I didn't do in spring weeks or anything. So just the normal route, as you would say, interviewing and then getting the job. And then I've gone through this pathways that a lot of corporate companies have, which is first year you do spring week and then summer and then a grad. So I've been through both routes as well. So it all depends, as you said, of each one's journey, and both are valid. Yeah.
And I suppose just to pick up on that,
Yeah.
it kind of shows us that throughout your life and throughout the various careers and jobs you go through, every company you work for will be structured differently. So it's quite nice to get that experience in early, right? Of oh, okay, this is how they work, and this is the system that I've been through before, or this is a bit of a new one. Would you go along with that, Janet?
Absolutely. And I think one of the challenges can be for students and graduates when they look at the websites of companies. They all sound the same in some ways, but every company will want that applicant to say, I've chosen you and I think you're different and I know what you're all about. And that's actually really tough to do if almost all you're looking at is is the website of the company, because there is a kind of not a uniformity, that's unfair, but there are common themes that will come across in most corporate careers websites. So the way to get through that is actually to have real conversations and real insights. So whether that's by going to an insight day and actually getting in the building and seeing the colleagues at work, seeing what they enjoy about their job, or even going to kind of virtual open days, listening to alumni who are working in the firms, to kind of just hear what they're saying and see what resonates with you. And that then can help inform who you choose to apply for, but also mean that when you're applying, you're not just saying you are one of the best companies doing this, this, and this. You're saying something actually meaningful.
Yeah.
You're saying it was really interesting to hear from your graduate I spoke to who is working in this field, and how he's getting involved in this project. That is really fascinating to me, because so I think partly it's about building experience, but I think almost more fundamentally it's about building connections, building an understanding, and then testing that with you, what you know about yourself. Because if you know you need an environment that's really collaborative, where everyone's views are welcome, and you hear that from maybe some alumni but not others, then that can give you a steer in terms of who to apply for and who to target.
Agreed.
It's actually fascinating hearing you talking about the whole, I wanted to apply for you because I've wanted to work for you for years. It's quite an easy trap to fall into, isn't it? When you're sending off lots of applications and they say, well, why do you want to work for us? And you suddenly think, because I sent you an application, maybe? That's what, it's difficult. Demi, what are those routes that Janet was mentioning there? Did you explore?
Yeah, I love that you said and you mentioned going out there and talking to people. Networking for me was key. Because you're networking with people, you hear a little bit of their experience at the beginning.
And when we say networking, what do you sort of mean by that? Is that talking to people? Is that online conversations? What does that sort of word mean?
Both. I think at the beginning I had no clue what I wanted to do for a career. What helped me was getting in touch with career department, and then from there going to a career event. I attended to a few of them, and then from there I met people, and then that led me to bigger to companies like Bright Network. I don't know if you heard of them, but they organize this networking opportunities, connecting students to employers in a much larger scale. So for me, attending to these events was so helpful to sort of like have an idea of what companies feels right, and getting to know a bit of their the cultures and about companies itself. Because being an international student, you don't know much about these things and how it works in the UK. So for me, it was, and I found my mentor through these opportunities as well, which was, for me, was key as well, because this person was someone that was far ahead in their career, and I kind of look up to them. And so they were able to kind of guide me, and my spring internship was, so they sent it to me and they're like, oh, Demi, we think you would be great doing this. And I'm like, do you think so? Me? Why me? And then he was like, why not you? You have every quality that they're asking for. You have everything they're asking for. Why not you? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I applied and I eventually got the job. So
it's really nice that they gave you that belief.
I think so.
Really nice.
And it's good to kind of have these people that you can look up to, you can like get mentoring from. For me, it was really key. And I advise every student to get out there, get out of your comfort zone, network with people, and find who are people that can be mentors to you and sort of help you on this journey. People want to help you. They want to see you succeed. You just got to expose yourself, go out there and find them.
The network companies thing you mentioned was really interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. Also, I know the lawyers will get angry if I don't say other networking companies are available, so we'll get that one in there. Let's talk a little bit about interviews and the interview process. Janet, what is the one question that you get asked the most about interviews?
I guess it's how can I answer the questions the best, and what is the right answer? And I guess that's obviously
broad questions.
Broad questions. Yeah. Yes. Have you got a couple of hours? I think sometimes people understandably get really concerned about interviews, and they get quite nervous about them. And I guess the key point I'd say is employers know you're going to be nervous. It is a nerve-wracking situation to be in front of someone, and in the moment you're there, you've got half an hour to be there with them. You've got to connect with them and help them see it's right for you.
It's like you being on this
It's like
podcast,
that, and
because
absolutely
you're both
terrifying.
applying to be the
Yes,
next host of this the UCAS
absolutely.
International podcast, and
And
you're
I've-
both doing very well.
Yeah, got it in the bag.
Yeah.
But I think the key thing is what I always say to students is it is about the targeting and always going back to what you know about the company, what the role involves, and do your prep around that, because there is no such thing as a perfect answer. It's about thinking about your own personal story, and it's about thinking about what you've done alongside, well, what does that company need? How can I help them understand that I've got what they're looking for and that I'm genuinely interested in them? And I think, obviously, AI, we have AI. AI is...
You mentioned it.
I
You
mentioned
the word.
it. I'm sorry, but it has to be said. AI is increasingly used within the recruitment process, and it's used by recruiters. It's used by recruiters to screen CVs. It's used less prevalently, I would say, in interviews. A lot of applicants will think, oh, will they be just looking at my video interview and using AI to decide? That doesn't happen very much in the UK. It perhaps does in other countries, but it doesn't so much in the UK. But I guess the worst thing I would say you could do in terms of getting ready for an interview is to generate answers using AI, because an interview is all about you. An interview is all about why you, what have you got, and why you interested. And AI can't do that for you. So AI can help you perhaps research a company, can help you, it can help you maybe understand what certain skills and competencies mean, so you can find great stories. But just make sure when you give answers, it's proper you that they're seeing.
Demi, this is not where you tell us that you used AI for all your interviews.
I did too, as you said, for research is great, but no, not for interviews. Usually, what I do is research the company, think about the role, as you mentioned, and think why my skills would be good for that specific role, and then but just mainly for research. It's a great tool for that. Also to help you kind of tailor your CV for a specific role. That would be, how you'd use it. But your questions about interviews in general, and perhaps what helped me.
I was going to say, what helped you? And also, I'd like to know if you have, have you developed any sort of like rituals, anything that you do before every interview that's really helped you, anything like that?
Yeah, well, I always tend to use the STAR method to answer questions. So that stands for situation, task, action, and result. So UK interviews, from my point of view, it's very situation-based and competency-based. So we were talking about that earlier. So they would ask you questions like, tell me about a time where you struggle with multiple deadlines. And then so you would, with the STAR method, it's a great way to structure answers. It'd be like, oh, I was in a situation once that I was doing this and this and that on a team, work on a team, and then I was doing this task, and that was about doing this X, Y, and Z, and then as a task, action, and then as an action, I did this and this and that, and then as a result, X, Y, and Z happened. So I use that to kind of like formulate and structure the answers, and that's something that not a lot of people know. It's very useful. I learned that from my career department. Actually, they were so good at kind of
Janet's
like
nodding
giving
along.
support.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah. Do you talk to your students about this?
Absolutely. I mean, I think STAR is brilliant because
Just run us through it again. What does it stand for?
So situation, task. So task is, what were your responsibilities? What were your priorities? So I always think of it as objective as well. Mm-hmm. And then action. What did you do? How did you do it? Why did you do it like that? And then result. What was the outcome? Yep. But also, some people do the double R just for a bit of excitement. So the double R would be what's the result, but also what's your reflection on it? What have you learnt from that?
It's a good one.
How has it impacted you in the future? So I think what that helps you do, and again, don't ever memorize an answer because you just sound like you're reading from a script and it just
and they
sounds
know
awful.
about that as well.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think it's
can
about
tell.
finding the real story. There was a time, I can remember it. So really remember the face of the person that was who was involved, how did it feel, what was in your mind. The action bit is key because that is almost step by step going through how you approached it, what was the decisions behind it, because it's through that they can believe you have the skills they need. So it just helps you keep on track with an answer, unlike I am. It helps you keep on track with an answer.
Your application to be the host of this podcast is going very well.
Going on well. But I think one thing I would say with competence questions, what we're noticing is that in some companies are realising that you can practice these questions. And they're thinking, no, that's cheating. I don't want to give them something that they've practiced. I want them to kind of surprise them. So what some companies are doing are moving to what they would call strength-based questions. So strength-based questions would be things that in theory show what drives you, what motivates you. So things like...
you can ask them to me if you want. I can be a dummy.
You can not that. So perhaps what 3 words would your friends say about
you? Thick, silly, and podcast.
Okay. So I would say that's probably, obviously in a really kind way, when I'm working with students, I'd say that's got good starting points.
Okay.
But I think it needs to be developed a bit more.
I shouldn't have thought about the fact that you'd actually have a serious response to my silly answer, but yeah, fine.
So I think the key thing is what they're trying to get at is what is the real you? What drives you? What makes you different? And so a good way to start is to give the words, but then to kind of explain it. Say the reason they'd say this is because, and with the companies that use these, they then will look at what's important to them in the role that they're offering and see how what drives you is connected to that. So it's just a different type of question. So I think the best advice I give is always to look at the information on career services websites, and I would say that, but because if you look at that, there will be examples of different types of questions, and also the really important questions like fundamental question, which is often the first question that's asked: why? Why have you applied for this job? What is it about this job that has kind of encouraged you to apply? And if you give a good answer to that, you've got them on your side. But if you give a weak answer to that, you've got a lot of groundwork to make up. So,
and thankfully, though, that's one that you can prep. You can sort of prep for because you know that's coming. That's not one of the ones that will catch you out. We'll have a while.
Yeah, 100%. And it, for me, it's about, again, that authentic reason. I mean, obviously, if they're the best payers and you say, well, you're offering most money, probably that isn't the best way to start. But I mean, I will often say to students, well, how would you explain to your friend why you've applied to that job? Why did you choose? When you're scrolling through the job sites, why did you stop on that one, have a look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to invest my time in applying for that? What is it? What made you stop? What made you kind of commit to that in terms of applying? Yeah. So it's then translating that almost anecdotal, not well developed idea into, okay, well, this is what I've found out about them, and this is why I've applied.
And practice loads, do mock tests, mock interviews, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. So that's another tip for...
Yeah, and sorry to cut in, but I think one thing it is worth saying, and I know this is a surprise for a lot of applicants, because a lot of the big corporate organisations get quite a lot of applications in that first round, when the first interview you're likely to come across, it's called a video interview, and everyone assumes that's like a Zoom interview, or you're kind of just talking to someone on screen, but you're not. So the way video interviews are typically done, they're used on a platform, and you will be given the interview question and you answer into your laptop and you explain the answer, whether it's a competence question.
You're sort of recording this into your
You're
laptop.
recording it, and the employer is then, off at another time looking at all the interviews and assessing them and making some judgment on who gets through to the next stage. And, one of the things they will be looking at, they'll be looking at your body language. They'll be looking at your eye contact, which obviously is bonkers because you're not making eye contact because you're doing it on a screen. It's very much looking at not just how you answer, what you answer, but how you're coming across. Are you looking really engaged? Are you looking, are you giving all those positive signals? So I think the key message...
So we're talking your shoulders back. If we look at that middle camera, we're talking shoulders back, good posture, a little bit of hands, not too much hands. Is that right? Smiling away, yeah?
And I think it's about also the setup. I mean, it's kind of the technicals, isn't it? So it's how, if you're too close to the screen, you're like a head in a box.
Yes.
So you're a head in a box, and every time you answer something and you're not sure about it, and you go like that, it's really obvious. So all your micro expressions are really clear. Whereas if you're sat back a bit, it's more like you're in the room with them and they can see your hands moving. So they're not trying to catch you out, but it is something you've got to get used to. So unless you are, a really keen podcaster or like vlogging or are constantly on social media videoing yourself, I think the key message I would give is to try and get to a stage where it doesn't feel as weird as it kind of is. So kind of just as well as doing mock interviews, at least with mock interviews people are there, but almost get to the stage where you're recording yourself on whatever platform, answering questions, being super enthusiastic, and so that when you come to do it, you're not faking it because it's just normal.
To finish off, I want to ask you, Demi, have you ever been rejected for a job?
Yeah.
You have?
Many times.
So a lot of people will be, obviously, you're going to go through rejection if you apply for jobs. How would you advise people to deal with that? Because it can naturally be a disheartening thing, especially if you've put all this work into it. You've done the interview, you've put loads of research, and you thought, I really want to get this job, and you don't get it.
Yeah.
That can be tricky. How would you advise people to deal with that?
Yeah. You're right. It's a bit demoralizing, the whole process. But you have to keep going, and if it wasn't for you that time, maybe it will be in the next time. You just gotta keep doing interviews, and the more you do, as I said, the better you get it in. And
that's the thing. You at least you will have learned something from it.
Exactly. Yes. So I've done a lot, and so now I feel like I'm a little bit more comfortable for interviewing. So it's just the more you do, the better you get at it. If it wasn't at that time, it will be the next time. You just gotta keep consistent. And also just don't be driven by motivation, because that usually comes and goes. But just keep disciplined, and that will take you a lot further. And just keep doing it.
And Janet, to finish off, I was going to... Oh, go on. Were you going to...
Can I just add something to that? Because I think this is a really, really important question. Because what we sometimes find is that if you're at university, you may have been a high achiever. You might have succeeded in everything you've done up to now. You might have failed your driving test, but that's probably the worst you've ever come across. And it can be really it can quite hit you if you aren't successful. But I think I totally agree with Demi. I always use the analogy that you've just got to keep looking forward. It is a bit of a numbers game. You have to apply to good numbers of opportunities, whether it's work experience, whether it's placements, whether it's insight weeks, whether it is graduate schemes. It is competitive. It is competitive. But I think it's about using that concept of competition, not to be scared of it, but to be aware of it and to be realistic. But keep applying, but always make the best application you can. So don't apply for so many that the quality goes, that you're handing the same application. I mean, I've seen examples where people have put the name of the wrong company in their application, which, to be honest, isn't a good thing to do. So I think it's about do those good applications as soon as you've done it, as soon as you've done a process, put it behind you and look forward about the next one you're going to do. Yeah. And I think always have that confidence that you are a good applicant, that you've really got something good to offer. And ultimately, only one has to say yes. You know, if everyone you applied for said yes, that in itself brings another problem. So I think it's about using it positively, trying to get feedback. And I know that sometimes feels quite uncomfortable, because if you've not been successful, you kind of don't want someone to say, well, it was rubbish. You know, clearly you didn't get the job. But they're not going to do that. And the great thing about asking for feedback is often they will say something that actually makes you feel really confident. They'll say, we really liked the way you did this and this. You came across really well. We like this. We like this. But there's this one thing that you need to work on.
And then you're going to go and work on it.
Yeah. So, take feedback. Keep working with the careers team to kind of get you ready, to get you in the zone, to kind of boost you back up again when you feel that perhaps it isn't going your way. And kind of just be confident in yourself.
Yeah, just to add to that, my best applications were the ones that actually put a lot of thought into it. So definitely quality over quantity. It's a huge.
It's nice to hear you say as well that, you know, some companies might say to you, oh, you didn't get, you know, there was this that you want to work on. But also sometimes companies will say to you, it was just that someone else had a bit more experience, and sometimes you couldn't have done much about it. Final thing I just want to ask is the fluidity of careers. I feel like 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was a thing where, you know, you did university and then you had one career for the rest of your life. We're very lucky, the world we live in, and especially here in the UK, that multiple careers over the course of your life are an option. Janet, how important is it to try and keep that at the back of your mind, that you don't have to necessarily do this career or this job for the rest of your life?
I think that's such a good point, really, because I think one of the things that students, whatever year they're in, and new graduates really struggle with is, but if I choose the wrong thing, what happens? I'll be there forever. And clearly that isn't how it happens. I think it's about thinking your first job is your first job. Your first experience is your first experience. And whatever you do, you are learning from it. You are gaining skills from it, which always are going to be transferable. But the key thing is everything you do, you will know more about yourself. I started a very long time ago in accounting. I started and I loved bits of it, but it wasn't for me, etc. So I think it's about using your experiences to think, well, what bits of that job did I really enjoy the most? What has that told me about what I need? How can I then move sort of sideways, diagonally? And I think it's having the confidence to manage your own career. And that's all about really self-awareness. It's about what do I know about me rather than how does it work in this environment? What do I know about me? And then you can use that to research what opportunities are available.
You were nodding your head there, Danny. Would you agree?
I couldn't agree more, actually. I always think of career development as a marathon, not a sprint, you know. Every little opportunity matters for you to kind of build that confidence and figure out what's next. And you can always change if you don't like, you know, but you have to start somehow. And completely agree with that.
So cool. Is it exciting? Having this chat, I feel like for you must be like, yeah, let's go get it now.
Yes, definitely.
Good. Yeah. Nice. Well, good luck with the rest of your final year, so home stretch.
Yes.
Good stuff. Exciting things await you, no doubt. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
No worries,
and
my
same
pleasure.
to you, Janet. Hopefully you've enjoyed it with the lightning bolts coming out of your head.
There you go.
Good stuff. Thank you very much to you both. Don't forget, of course, plenty of resources available via ucas.com/international. And also loads of various topics are covered on other episodes of the UCAS International podcast. You can find them wherever you get your podcasts, or of course on YouTube. Make sure to like, subscribe, tell your friends and family, whoever you want, your cleaner if you want. We'll speak soon.